Well, yesterday we all woke up to another terrorist attack in Europe, this time in Brussels. The terrorists hit the city's airport and metro. More than 30 people were killed. About 270 were injured. And here at home, before the dust even settled, conservatives were responding in the way they tend to do, advocating for torture, advocating for patrolling Muslim neighborhoods, and, of course, slamming Obama. Peter, what was your first impression of the bombings in Belgium that we saw, given that it's only about 4 or 5 months since the Paris attacks and that immediate knee-jerk reaction from the conservative politicians here at home?
Well, you have to moderate my remarks at this point, because everyone will say, "Oh my God, too soon. Today we are all Belgians," and put up a Facebook post. But once again, I have to shake my head and say, we've been pursuing a particular strategy against terrorists for 15 years. And it doesn't, there is extraordinary empirical evidence, unfortunately, including the loss of 30-some lives yesterday in Belgium, that it just is not working. And unless and until that strategy is realigned, then it's very sad to say that people will continue to lose their lives in this particular way. Needless to say, torture and carpet bombing are not included in the plan to rethink the strategy.
Or international law. Well, Josh, on the one hand, you had Trump come out and advocate closing the border, advocate torturing the terrorists that they have in custody in Europe. And on the other hand, you had Obama, who spent maybe a minute of his speech in Cuba discussing the attack and then went to a baseball game. Is that really the best way to react to this kind of event when you have people who, whether, they should be or not, are increasingly worried about terror attacks here?
Well, before we get into picking apart the individual partisan reactions, I do think that the overall reaction in general to the Brussels bombing has continued what I think is a disturbing trend of late, and that is these events happen. And, whether it's because of sort of the instant nature of the internet and the desire to always have a hot take, it seems like we don't take time to just, react to things as people rather than reacting to things, as a conservative candidate for president or as the president of the United States or as members of the press. Justice Scalia's death was politicized seconds after it was announced, minutes maybe. Before we had even, before I even had heard the news, Trump had been on 2 different networks talking about closing the borders and, advocating, saying that we have a problem with Muslims and things like that. And that's just disgusting. Now, with President Obama, I can kind of understand how on the first presidential trip to Cuba, skipping the baseball game, I understand sort of why maybe they didn't change their plans. And I thought Obama had a good answer in saying that, when you let terrorism disrupt your lives, the terrorists end up winning. And I think that's an important thing we don't talk about enough. But I also feel like his response did sort of seem like he didn't give a shit, which is also the wrong message to send, especially considering that, for better or worse, America sort of owns this current problem we have with terrorism.
Well, there's another part to Obama's reaction, and that is that there were American casualties in this. I'm not sure if they've confirmed any deaths, but certainly some Americans were injured in it. Yeah. And, Obama's reaction of, we can't let terrorists control our lives is something that I strongly agree with him. Absolutely. But at the same time, he plays a symbolic role in the United States, and to be, the shots that we saw on the internet, him on one side of the screen doing the wave, and then, people being pulled out of the rubble on the other side of the screen. He probably should have taken some time off to grieve, to monitor the situation, to make phone calls to the relatives, call it what you want. But going back to Josh's comment about not politicizing it, I think this would have been an opportunity for him to humanize the reaction by saying, even though we don't let the terrorists control our lives, we do grieve for those who have been injured, and in my role as president, particularly the Americans, and get out of the goddamn baseball stadium. It just didn't look good.